But you asked one question earlier about the about archival material. I had one case very recently, just 2 years ago, where I was called by the U.S. Holocaust Museum to do an investigation. What had happened was they were looking for a very famous diary. This diary was about 500 pages handwritten. It was handwritten by Alfred Rosenberg, who was the chief civil scientist for Hitler. He was actually hung as a war criminal at the Nuremberg trials. And during the trials, one of the prosecutors there had gotten a hold of his diary and they had looked at it as possible evidence against him in the trial. Well, what he did was he kept the diary, basically took it for his own use, stole it, so to speak. It didn't show up until almost 2013 when we did the investigation. We were able to find the diary. It was being held by a Canadian individual in upstate New York. But what's so interesting about it, the investigation was very interesting, but what's really interesting about the diary, it had never been transcribed, and it had never been translated. So no one knew what was in it. And it was 500 pages between 1936 and 1945 when he had his personal meetings at that whole time as a member of a high member of the Third Reich. Remember, Rosenberg was the head of the group that was in charge of stealing the art in New York. He was also the progenitor, the person who started the idea of the Holocaust against the Jews, and was in charge of all of the Nazi works in the Eastern Europe area. So Poland, Romania, where all those deaths were occurring, he was in charge of that. So Rosenberg was a very, very big character in the Second World War and throughout that period. Ended up being hung, and I ended up being able to write a book about that as well. This is the American version coming out, and Kashiwa Shobo will also be publishing the same thing. It's called The Devil's Diary. I believe this is the cover for Kashiwa Shobo, and it should be out in March coming out. Again, this is the American. There's at this point, it's been sold or being published in 26 languages. So I think that our Japanese viewers would be very interested in seeing what was going on in Hitler's Germany, 1945.